welcome again to the Acid Trash Jamboree, a channel where I talk at length about weird and wonderful music and films. Okay, so today I've brought together a quartet of films, all of which are very different, but they all have something in common, in that they were all reissued on Blu-ray and or DVD by the Code Red label. Now, anyone who's into collecting vintage horror and exploitation movies on disc will probably have come across this label at some point. Yeah, from the mid-2000s onwards, they were arguably one of the most important and certainly prolific companies when it came to digging up, restoring and reissuing genre films of all kinds. As I say, from horror and exploitation, to crime and action flicks, comedies, sci-fi, blaxploitation, and pretty much everything in between. Notoriously, the chap who ran Code Red, Bill Olsen, could be a rather prickly and erratic character, though I won't dwell on that side of things. And yeah, unfortunately he died sometime in 2022, followed not too long after by his brother Walt, who also ran a really great and prolific label, Scorpion Releasing. So yeah, with those two gone, they've left a huge hole in the movie reissue market. Though, as I said, whilst they were alive, between them they saved literally hundreds of cool films from obscurity. So, without further ado, let's take a look at 4 from the Code Red side of things. Okay, we start with The Devil's Wedding Night, and intrigued by some writings about the Ring of Nibelungen, a fella named Franz Schiller heads off to Transylvania in search of this all-powerful bit of kit, which he thinks he'll find in Castle Dracula, now the abode of La Contessa d'Ollingen de Vries. Seemingly unfazed by the dire warnings of those he meets along the way, not to mention all the spooky goings-on when he finally arrives at the castle. Before long, Franz finds himself bedding down with the rather lovely Contessa, who, you guessed it, is actually a vampire, keen to not only share her affliction with her new lover, but to marry him too. Franz's twin brother Carl is hot on his heels, as he's also looking for the ring, but upon his arrival, he's told that Franz has already left the castle. In fact, Franz has been laid to rest in a tomb, in preparation for both his vampiric transformation and the nuptials. But will Carl realise what's going on in the nick of time, or will he too fall foul of the wicked Contessa? Well, this early 70s Euro effort starts off about as rivetingly as a Hammer movie from the same era, i.e. not very, though it does kind of threaten to go places after a time with some blood, boobs and trippy visuals. Alas, then it's back to the gothic boredom for a while. Nice looking gothic boredom, mind, but boredom all the same. The climax is alright, with a passably cool ritual sequence and whatnot. Plus there are some nice guitar and organ cues on the score. Otherwise, this was quite a chore to get through without falling asleep. There's really not too much else to say about this one, which was co-directed by the legendary hit-and-miss Italian schlockmeisters Luigi Batzella and Joe D'Amato. Yeah, I was expecting good things from The Devil's Wedding Night, but sadly it didn't live up to my expectations, so I can't see myself ever slogging through it again. We move on to The Fifth Floor, in which a nightclub entertainer named Kelly shows up to work one night and informs one of her colleagues that she's just been dumped by her boyfriend and is understandably upset about it. Midway through her shift, Kelly becomes unwell and collapses on the dance floor, resulting in her needing to be hospitalised. Test results reveal that Kelly is suffering with strychnine poisoning, which leads the medics to believe that she intended to do herself in, when in fact she accidentally ingested a spiked drink in the club. After 4 days in ICU, Kelly is still suffering from hallucinations from the strychnine, meaning she needs psychiatric care up on the hospital's notorious 5th floor, also known as Psycho City. Once her symptoms have abated, she tries to get the medics to believe that she was spiked, though her words fall on deaf ears. And unfortunately for Kelly, there's a sleazy hospital attendant named Carl on the prowl who'll stop at nothing to ensure that her stay on the 5th floor is as long as possible. Now, strangely, whilst the 5th floor is a solid enough watch, unfortunately, it isn't quite enough of anything to make it worth sitting through more than once in my estimation. At least on the horror or exploitation side of things anyways, with only a smattering of the good stuff on offer. Nah, campy disco dancing sequences aside, this is more of a downbeat drama than anything else. Like I say, it does what it does quite well, and stays on the right side of being boring for the most part, with some mild thrills and spills. There's just nothing in it that fired me up enough to want to keep hold of it. Before I move on, it's also worth pointing out that there are a bunch of very familiar faces in this, including the likes of Mel Ferrer, Patty D'Arbanville, and Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. Next we have Happy Hell Night, and 25 years after he savagely butchered 7 of Pi Delta Kappa's frat boys, who were conducting a satanic ritual down in his family's burial crypt, former priest Zachary Malleus is now locked away deep in the bowels of a lunatic asylum. Having shunned daylight for the entire length of his incarceration, and apparently living off stray insects that he finds crawling around in his cell, Malleus is a thoroughly sickly and ghoulish creature, patiently biding his time until he can break free and kill again. Lucky for him, then, that the current crop of students at PDK have a truly daring initiation task lined up for their fresh pledges on Hell Night. Yeah, having heard rumours of the massacre, they nominate 2 boys to enter the asylum, locate Malleus's cell, then break in and take a Polaroid of him. Of course, it all goes horribly wrong, and Malleus is soon back out there, brutally wiping out anyone unfortunate enough to be partying in the frat house that night. Yep, it's generic slasher time again. That said, is there any other kind? Whilst the movie sports an effectively creepy killer character, being a product of the early 90s, unfortunately the makers ruin things a bit by giving him corny, quasi-comedic one-liners to croak out after each murder, when they really should have just kept him silent. Otherwise, Happy Hell Night stays just about on the right side of goofy for the most part, with all the boobs, blood and dark, ominous locations you could ever wish for from a slasher. Unfortunately though, the score is dreadful, mostly consisting of very cheesy synth cues, plus some jangly college rock and irksome pop-punk songs, which don't fit with the film at all. If you're done with slashers, then this one probably won't reconvert you to the cause. I'm a hopeless case though, and unlike the other 2 films discussed so far, I'll probably keep it hanging around for at least one more watch. Lastly for now, In the Aftermath, and following instructions from her older brother, a young, egg-toting female angel pays a visit to the post-apocalyptic hellhole named Earth, with a view to using said magical egg to restore the place to its former glory. On her arrival, though, she's understandably intimidated by the hostile environment she finds herself in. Along the way, the angel ends up saving a soldier, Frank, from certain death after he's wounded and shorn of his gas mask and protective suit by a thief. Soon after, Frank finds himself in the company of a kind doctor named Sarah, who takes him to one of the last remaining spaces on Earth where they don't need to wear their masks to breathe and where he can recuperate. Meanwhile, the angel is in 2 minds whether to gift her egg to the humanoids after all. Well, here's an odd one. In the Aftermath combines new, live-action footage in the form of the post-apocalyptic stuff, with segments taken from the legendary Japanese animated weird fest Angel's Egg, and attempts to integrate the 2 and make something semi-coherent from them. Now, I'm not big on anime by any means, so haven't seen the full-length Angel's Egg. Even so, I can fully understand why fans of that movie might be outraged by this bizarre hodgepodge, which apparently came about because the production company acquired the rights to it for peanuts. Still, I'm always fascinated by these kinds of filmic follies, and I guess there are some cool, artful sequences here, like the oft-mentioned and weirdly poignant scene where Frank plays a piano whilst kitted out in his gas mask. The animation is obviously beautiful to look at, but yeah, all in all, this does feel more like some clumsy, lopsided collage than a satisfying and consistent work. Still, as a bizarre, slapdash bit of chuck-together madness, just as a certain something that I find appealing, for reasons I can't fully explain. Yeah, personally, I've definitely seen much worse than In the Aftermath, though if you're an anime purist, be warned, as sitting through this will feel like a fate worse than death, I'm sure. Okay, so perhaps not the greatest selection from the vast Code Red archive, but as I always say, that's how it goes sometimes. Rest assured, these aren't the last Code Red titles I'll be discussing here on the channel, so we'll see what the next batch brings. But yeah, for now, that's the end of today's video. Thanks as ever for watching. If you're new around here, please do take a look around and check out some of the older episodes, and I'll catch you again soon on the Acid Trash Jamboree.